Panther people, what up? Can you hear the ocean breeze? Just a bit. Now you watching Panthers post with Phil Perkins, Myrtle Beach edition. Super great to be outside Bank of America Stadium. Super great to stay in Charlotte for the night. My kid got sick, motion sickness, also dealing with the virus. He's over that now. Don't worry. We're all good. But we decided from driving from Toronto to Myrtle, kind of break it up into 3 days. Got to stay in Charlotte. That's pretty sweet. Shout out Old News Vintage in North Davidson. Dope vintage. They had a great sale on, but they did not have the Panther stuff out. They did give me a 2003 NFC Championship t-shirt for $10. Dope. But either way, super great to actually bring the show to Bank of America Stadium. There was no game. Hopefully that's the next step to actually do a video outside and inside Bank of America Stadium, pregame, postgame, during game. Obviously, that'd be the best. Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, I'm going to let you know who I think they're most likely going to be targeting come late April in Kansas City when the Panthers are the first to hand in their card at the 2023 NFL Draft. But it's not just about the quarterback. Obviously, they're building around the quarterback. Whoever they plop in there is successful right off the bat. There's other guys they still need to draft, other guys they still need to sign in free agency. So we're going to break down what Frank Reich and Scott Fitterer had to say to the media earlier today and how that's going to determine who they pick up come the draft again in Kansas City. Right off the gate, Frank Reich and Scott Fitterer both made it pretty clear. They're not playing any games. Like at number 9 in the draft, which they were picking before they traded all those picks and DJ Moore to the Chicago Bears to move all the way up to number 1 overall, Panthers aren't playing any games. They don't need to pretend that they want to get a quarterback with the ninth pick. They know, and everybody else knows, that they want a quarterback. The only thing no one else knows right now, except maybe this guy right here, not really, is who they're going to pick. Out of the top 4, they're saying, so sorry, Hendon Hooker, sorry, Tanner McKee. It's all about Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Will Levis, and Anthony Richardson. They don't have to worry about playing secret. They could just live freely. It's kind of nice, there's a saying, you have to have a better memory the more lies that you tell. And so they don't need to tell any lies. They always got to lie about who they like, but they could just be out there saying, yeah, we want a quarterback. What are you going to do about it? You can't pick above us. You can try to move us down, but at this point, Scott Fitterer told the media today that he hasn't gotten any calls for anyone trying to move up to the draft. And I cannot be more happy about it. Sure, there's the Lamar Jacksons out there. There are the Aaron Rodgers is out there. There's the, Matt Corral truthers out there, but really and truly, the apple of my eye since last draft. And I know this saying is, the next draft's always the better one. The last year's QB draft really left you no choice but to pick up a free agent or to trade for somebody, which the Panthers did for Baker Mayfield. But knowing this draft, I knew there was a CJ Stroud and a Bryce Young. Didn't know anything about Will Levis or Anthony Richardson, but I knew the eye of the prize. Even during the season, when the Panthers at one point were naturally picking first overall, to me, it was CJ Stroud or Bryce Young. It was actually Bryce Young number 1, CJ Stroud number 2. And so the fact that we're actually here right now without any stress, it's kind of nice. It's a privilege to be in this position right now. All right, so let's talk about, number 1, who the Panthers thinking about drafting right now. And just basing on what these guys are saying, trying to read between the lines, I honestly think it's between Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. Why do I say this? Because, what Frank Reich has been saying and what Scott Fitterer has been saying, specifically Frank Reich, the coach is going to be working with this guy day in and day out. And it talked about Andy Dalton, who they picked up, who was with, obviously, drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals, then was with the Dallas Cowboys, and then with the New Orleans Saints. But he was brought in here in Carolina, not just to be the quarterback, but Frank Reich called him the backup quarterback. He said quarterback, backup quarterback. So it seems like Andy Dalton already knows his role. Sorry, he's also with the Chicago Bears with a former Ohio State quarterback in Justin Fields, who's apparently buddies with CJ Stroud. Makes sense. But it seems like Andy Dalton knows that he's in this part of his career, that the Panthers could be his last stop professionally. He signed a long-term deal enough that he can always be that guidance for Bryce or CJ Stroud. Obviously, Josh McCown is the quarterback's coach, but there's something different about the guy who's literally putting on the pads with you. But it's just that extra cushion, the extra, decade plus of knowledge that you're not only getting from Frank Reich and you're getting from Josh McCown, but now you're also getting from Andy Dalton, a guy who's lacing up the cleats just like you are. But it seems like he knows his role. And he knows his role is going to be as a mentor, as a preseason arm, maybe a third string quarterback as well. If Matt Corral isn't there, someone that they pick up maybe late in the draft or in free agency. And then so I feel like whoever they draft is basically slated to be the week 1 starter. Maybe they have a couple hiccups, but it seems like the foundations are in place coaching wise And also player-wise, we're going to talk about the free agent pickups as well. And, we got a Thielen right now. Trust me, I'm feeling pretty good. But it seems like the foundation is there, and then Frank Reich and Scott Fitter are patting themselves on the back as they should be by building this foundation coaching-wise and personnel-wise that whoever this rookie is, they could just plop them in and they could start making moves ASAP. And I think the only two quarterbacks in this draft that are capable of doing that are CJ Stroud and Bryce Young, because they basically played through professional organizations with Alabama and The Ohio State University. I think Anthony Richardson and Will Levis, even though the coaching staff and the personnel are there, I think you got to worry a little bit more, and you got to have Andy Dalton there a little bit longer, which isn't a bad thing. But I think they think this team can turn the table pretty darn quick. The NFC as a whole, if you talk about the Philadelphia Eagles with the class of the conference, they've lost a bunch of people, including Miles Sanders. They've lost coaches. Steichen is the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, and so they've lost personnel and they've lost coaches. If you take a look at the NFC, who's really a threat out there? Is it maybe the Dallas Cowboys? I don't think so. The Green Bay Packers most likely going to use Aaron Rodgers unless they know something about Jordan Love we don't. The Seattle Seahawks could maybe improve on their season, but really the NFC, not just the NFC South, is kind of up for the taking. And so I think they feel that if they get a CJ Stroud or a Bryce Young and they just pop them in there and the foundation they have, I think they're on the right track. And in my opinion, I think it's going to be Bryce Young. Now, Frank Reich, it is lying season, so they can say whatever they want and we can think whatever we want. But he talked about how he had a really high grade on Russell Wilson, who's about the same height, 5'10" and change as Bryce Young, but a lot thicker than Bryce Young was. He got thicker as the years went on. Maybe Bryce Young can do the same. Hell, I'm, 36, turning on 37. I'm 195 pounds, but I feel like I look thicker than I did when I was 10 years younger. But either way, he talked about how, he doesn't know where that narrative came from, that he only works with tall quarterbacks, that he had a high grade on Russell Wilson. So, don't rule out Bryce Young, kind of hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge type situation. And I feel like, and I've said this during the season, you can look it up, Bryce Young excites me. CJ Stroud is kind of boring. Like, his game's kind of boring. I don't know what he is off-field wise, but it seems like Bryce Young is more of that vocal leader that I think that this iteration of the Panthers brass like, which is why they got to Adam Thielen, which is why they got to Hayden Hurst, because these are vocal leaders. No disrespect to DJ Moore. I don't know how vocal he was, but he was a lead by example guy. Wasn't voted as a captain this year. I know you can only have so many, but the fact that you got guys who are vocal leaders and talked about as being vocal leaders and have had their stories talked about, specifically with Hayden Hurst with his struggles with mental health and all this stuff in his life, I feel like that's the kind of guys that they want. And I feel like Bryce fits that mold. I think he fits that mold as a CEO. I think he fits that mold as a leader, a vocal leader on this team right off the bat. Panthers have now added arguably their wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, and former Minnesota Viking, career Minnesotan in Adam Thielen, wide receiver, 32 years old. He'll be 35 by the end of his contract. Scott Fitter told the media today that he wanted to be here for 3 years. He wants to see this thing out. He wants to be a mentor to whether it's Terrace Marshall Jr., who could have learned a lot from Adam Thielen, according to Chad Johnson. He was praising Adam Thielen, who's apparently rocking number 19. So he's not exactly going to be Ted Ginn, but maybe he could be a game break and wide receiver for the team the same way it was in 2015 with Cam. But maybe he can teach the young guys, whether it's Shi Smith or Terrace Marshall Jr., how to run routes as well as he does. He kind of does that organic, flowy kind of type of route running that Chad Johnson was raving about. So if he can bring that savviness to the wide receiver room and that veteran presence, why not? Think about it. Our wide receiver core is pretty big. I know Frank Reich says he doesn't like big quarterbacks. He must like big wide receivers. So you got Terrace Marshall, who's like 6'2", 6'3". You got Adam Thielen, 6'2". You got Laviska Shenault, big man, tank, built like a tank. And now you got Hayden Hurst, and you got Tommy Tremble, and possibly another rookie tight end, depending on what happens in the draft. It could be a guy like Musgraves out of Oregon State. The guy's 6'6", 240, 250. Pretty big offensive skill set there, minus Shi Smith, who's definitely the smallest guy out there, and whoever they draft, because most of these wide receivers are pretty small. Like Josh Downs, I think, is like 5'9", 5'10". And so it's a pretty big offense you have to cover. So they definitely want to play bully ball with their wide receiver core. Miles Sanders, great two-way running back in terms of catching and running the ball. Great season with the Philadelphia Eagles. The fact that they can get him at a discount price is pretty damn good. So yeah, I feel good about the Adam Thielen pickup. I don't know if he's going to be a game breaker. I could see him getting a couple clutch touchdowns. I don't know if he's going to be, running away from defenders or anything like that. He might be left uncovered because guys could be double teaming Terrace Marshall or you know what? I actually don't know how this offense is going to, what kind of pressure it's going to put on the defense. As Thomas Brown said, it's all about creating chaos before the snap. So we'll see what kind of pre-snap motions are happening to give guys open looks, whether it is to Thielen or to the tight ends. Hayden Hurst. I feel like Hayden Hurst is going to eat in this offense. I feel like he did great with Cincinnati and with Atlanta. And so I think he's gonna do real well with the team. Adam Thielen again. I think he's just gonna come in clutch with some late game touchdowns. I don't know if he's gonna rack up the yards, but I think this is make or break for Terrace Marshall. Honestly, I do. I think obviously this is his second iteration of head coaching for him, but I think he's just got to be a sponge and learn. And I think he could be an absolute monster if that actually happens. Think about the free agency pickups, how that's going to trickle down effect into the draft. Do you like CJ Stroud? Do you like Bryce Young? Do you like Myrtle Beach? Got to say, downtown Myrtle Beach, it's an experience. North Myrtle, something else. Bit more my speed. Maybe because I'm a dad and I'm old. Also, shout out to everyone who follows me on Twitter at Panthers Post #1. Help me buy this hat. It was at the Lids outlet, Tanger Outlets in Myrtle Beach. So if you're in the area, they got this. It's priced down to $27 flat. Thank me later. See you guys. I'm on vacation, so I might be vlogging again in 1 to 2 days. Appreciate you.